United we're as strong as a mountain. United we're...
I want to welcome you all to this press conference that we're having in front of KPFA in Berkeley, California. My name is Steve Zeltzer. I'm producer of Work Week on KPOO. Also, I am with a group called Rescue Pacifica, rescuepacifica.net, which has been organizing to defend Pacifica and to defend democracy at Pacifica and also protect programming at Pacifica. And one of the issues, of course, that we're facing now is the rise of fascism and a fascist government in the United States. And we at Rescue Pacifica have been warning about the danger of a fascist government and what that means at Pacifica. Because one of the things that happened, unfortunately, is that a group called the Protectors here at KPFA have actually worked with the FCC, put a complaint in to the FCC to take away the license of WBAI. And that attack by Carol Wolfley, who's a member of the KPFA local board, was a dangerous and pernicious assault on Pacifica. They wanted to shut down WBAI, and previously they'd supported the shutdown of the WBAI office in New York, which was illegal, which was overturned by a court in New York. So what happened with that action, going to the FCC and making a complaint to take away the license of WBAI, was that the FCC actually determined that they were going to put Pacifica under a monitorship for 2 years and fine them $25,000. So this is the idea of some of the people here on the local station board, that they're going to defend Pacifica by going to the Federal Communications Commission. And we warned at that time this was a dangerous development, considering that Trump, if he won the election, would likely appoint a fascist to run the FCC. And what we can say today, after the removal of Colbert, after his program at the end of its term, the removal of Kimmel, is that, in fact, we face a fascist attack on democratic rights, democratic voices. And Pacifica was mentioned in Project 2025 as a target of the fascists who Heritage Foundation and others who put the Project 2025 together. So we warned the KPFA listeners, we warned the people on the KPFA board that this was a serious, dangerous thing that they did in appealing for the FCC to take away the license of WBAI. So what has happened, and we have also on the board been fighting for transparency and democracy. We fought for a finance committee on KPFA that would allow the KPFA members of the local station board to do oversight on what was happening on the financial situation at KPFA. The group called the Protectors, used to be called Save KPFA, have been opposing any kind of financial transparency. They haven't made reports to the members, and even the local station board members have not really been kept informed of what's going on. So the latest development is that we have learned, Pacifica, our group, Rescue Pacifica, have learned that, in fact, that KPFA and Pacifica have not presented their financial audit for 2022. And we think that that's a very serious issue that should be addressed and has to be addressed. Now, unfortunately, that hasn't been reported on, not only by KPFA, but by the executive director, Stephanie Wells. There's been no report that, in fact, they got 2 letters from the State Attorney General, Rob Bonta, that they were not in compliance with the nonprofit status of California for submitting financial reports. Now, what you have to ask, we have to ask, supporters of KPFA and Pacifica, why in this dangerous period has the management of Pacifica and KPFA been unable to present their financial reports, putting our foundation in jeopardy? Now, when you think about what this means, since Pacifica is already under a monitorship by the federal government. What could happen is, since they're not in compliance, their nonprofit status has been revoked, they're going to be having a fund drive. They have to tell the listeners that it's no longer a nonprofit that they can deduct from. That this government, this fascist government, could say we're going to use that as a pretext, as a justification to take away the licenses of Pacifica and close down the stations, get rid of the licenses, turn the license over to religious stations. That's a possibility with this government. This is a fascist government. And the danger is that that's not at all talked about. It's not about recognized. In fact, we understand there was a report to the Pacifica National Board. Stephanie Wills brought in an advisor who told them that they had nothing to worry about, that Pacifica was going to be okay, and that there was no threat from the federal government. We think that's very harmful. The other thing that's happened alongside this cover-up, financial cover-up, is that I and another member, Lisa Milos, have been purged or suspended from the KPFA local station board for some alleged charges. And they're also purged Alex Steinberg from the Pacifica National Board. And there's going to be a hearing this coming weekend to possibly purge another PNB member, Donna Carter. Now, this has a pattern that we think has to be addressed. At the same time, there's a lack of transparency. There's no report on what the financial situation is. They're purging people. So our next speaker is going to be Lisa Milos. Welcome, Lisa.
Like Steve talked about the purging going on, and we're all talking about right now about what happens with the Trump administration and the way that he has been censoring public media and media in general. Well, unfortunately, Pacifica and specifically KPFA, LSB, has been censoring us as well. Anytime we speak up to try to let the listeners know about what's been going on at Pacifica and the shenanigans and illegal activities that they've been involved in, or the activities that violations of Robert's rules and violations of the bylaws of Pacifica. I was expelled, for example, and then I was put back on. And now both Steve and I were suspended, and there's nothing in the Roberts rules or in the bylaws and specifically that correspond to being suspensions. But more importantly, and the issue that we have to really deal with right now is the fact that there has been a sham settlement, a so-called settlement, on the bylaws amendments. Now, the special interest within KPFA and within Pacifica, and specifically in Pacifica, it's New Day, led by Jan Goodman, and others as well. You can specify that but later. Specifically, the bylaws they were attempting to change the bylaws twice already, and both times they lost via elections. The last time that they lost in 2021, it was very clear why they lost. Because the workers, the staff, voted against it. And according to the bylaws, there was two classes of memberships, listeners and staff, and both needed to pass it in order for those bylaws amendments to pass. And after draining Pacifica of more than $400,000 in lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, presented by Jan Goodman, presented also, but lawsuits that kept coming and coming, and were being dismissed one after the other. Finally, a judge determined very clearly that the two classes of memberships needed to be respected, that it was valid, and therefore the amendment that had been proposed had been actually defeated. Now, there's also been a lot of mistakes, not really mistakes, but actually election violations whenever there has been these elections for LSB. Some people don't know that this is a pretty unique station in the fact that we had LSB elections where the local listeners and staff would elect a certain number of members to the LSB, local station board, and then those would serve for 3 years, and then during their period of time they would elect the members of the Pacifica National Board. And the bylaws amendments, the ones that they wanted to make, and which they ended up pushing through with a sham settlement, is going to make the board of directors into a self-designating board of directors. In other words, they're claiming that it's going to be more democratic, but in reality, it's going to be what's called majority rule, which is not how Pacifica was founded on. Pacifica was founded on the important precept that all of the voices need to be heard, including dissenting voices, and that dissenting voices sometimes are the canary in the gold mine. Or in the coal mine. Not the gold mine, the coal mine. You know, dissenting voices are sometimes the only thing that is actually a group of people brave enough to be able to state what is in front of everybody. And right now, with this fascist government in power, this has put us in an even more delicate situation, because a board of directors is going to be self-designating is one where 6 members will be voted on by nationally, but those 6 members are going to be the ones that are going to be choosing the rest. So it's going to be a self-designating board, similar to corporate media. And what do we learn during these past few decades about corporate media and about self-designating boards? We've learned that we cannot trust them to give us the information that the public needs in order to make decisions about our country, our communities, our health. So the reason why they're doing these purges is because they're trying to silence the voices of dissent. And right now, the reason why they're attacking one of our own members of the KPFA LSB, Donna Carter, who's going to be subject to a sham trial tomorrow. And this I'm saying personally. I'm not saying anybody else is saying this, but I'm saying this personally, out of personal experience of their sham trial that they did against me and against Steve Zeltzer. The reason why is because in order for any directors, Pacifica National Board directors, to make any changes or to propose any changes to the amendments, there has to be 6, minimum of 6. And by getting rid of Donna, they'll have 5. So they'll have like a veto-proof kind of environment where they can push through whatever changes they want. So far, the local station boards, each of them have lost their treasurers. Okay, we used to have our treasurer. Each station would have a treasurer. What's the point of having a treasurer? Well, each station has to have access to its financial information, the fundraising and what it's done, what it's doing with it. And the local station boards are meant to oversee the station operations. We're supposed to also be able to evaluate the general managers. Well, the protectors on the KPFA LSB, the ones who have been involved in doing these sham settlements and trying to push through and ram through these changes of the amendment of the bylaws, and who have been doing these purges, and also whose members have been directly involved in the FCC complaint about WBAI. They did Sherry Gendelman, a member of the KPFA LSB, sent a petition to deny to the FCC so that WBAI, a sister station, would not get its license renewed. Well, it got its license renewed for 2 years instead of the original 8. So therefore, now it's under monitorship, and so it's exposed. And now, I was a member of the audit committee back in 2021 and 2022. And during that time, we were having difficulty getting the information to the auditors so that they could actually complete an audit. And we were informed, and this was an open meeting, we were informed by the accountants that they had not been able to get the information from KPFA, which resulted in a 7-month delay in having an audit done. So now, this loss or suspension, rather, of the nonprofit status, according to the paperwork that we see on the Attorney General's website, one of the main issues is the fact that no audit has been done for year 2022. And so We want answers to our questions. How come we were not informed of this? The deadline was 8/15/2025, which was already an extension, and we're not being informed, and we're not, the audit has not been done. And my question is why? Meanwhile, they're spending their energy and expending people's time and energy to try to purge people off the LSB and off the PNB. Donna Carter has been a very dedicated member of the Pacifica National Board. They also expelled Alex Steinberg out of New York. Basically, they're doing one by one, seemingly, and this is, I know for some KPFA listeners, this might be really hard to believe, but this has been Trump-like behavior in censoring dissenting voices within public media and within Pacifica. So we're here to let people know about what's going on, because this also could have dire consequences for our fundraising efforts, and the suspension of our nonprofit status. To me, it's kind of hard to believe that it's just gross incompetence. To me, it seems like KPFA or the members of the protectors on KPFA are trying to continue with their goal of trying to separate KPFA away from Pacifica, and it doesn't seem to me like they really give a damn about what happens in Pacifica. The chair, Susan Young, should have been informed about this, or should have been keeping on top of this issue of the nonprofit status, as well as the chair of the Finance Committee, Fred Dodsworth, who's always screaming at people and abusing people and calling people names, but he doesn't even do his job right. So, in my opinion, they both need to lose their positions on the board. Thank you. And the next will be Donna Carter, who's going to be speaking to some issues there. Thank you.
I'm a KPFA admirer. I listen to the station every day almost. I am really, want KPFA and the other Pacifica stations to succeed and progress. We need new listeners. I think the current station is actually doing a pretty good job of bringing in new people with new programmers and innovative programming. So that's a good part. Nevertheless, there are a few things which Elizabeth has mentioned, which seemingly are anxiety-provoking for us who follow the governance of KPFA. One is the suspension of KPFA's license with the state of California, and the other is the bylaws change it. Okay. Oh, Pacifica, yeah, not KPFA. That just includes KPFA. The other is the bylaws change, which has been explained. There's a lot of details to that, but basically the listener station boards have lost some of their ability to review and manage or have access to the finances and hiring of the management and other things. So these are worrisome things. We don't need the bylaws were established to allow plenty of people to have participation in the governance, and that was for democratic reasons, but also so that problems would not accrue that would go without being attended to. The new bylaws consolidate the structure of Pacifica's governance, excuse me, and move away from that. So these are my primary concerns. I enjoy my work on the LSB and on the Pacifica National Board, and I've worked very hard to it. Doesn't mean that I'm an evil doer in Pacifica, and I I challenge that. So I encourage everyone to, about 20 or 30 years. Yeah.
And you were here during the conference?
I was here when everyone came out on the street in 1999, and there were 10,000 people out here insisting that KPFA manage its own affairs. I will tell you a little story that's kind of interesting. My first program I ever heard on KPFA was William Mandel, who was in front of the House Un-American Activities Committee in 1960 in San Francisco. And he's the one who with a lot of support, challenged the House Un-American Activities Committee. And it was all on tape, and it was all on KPFA. It was a really breakthrough moment for the end of the McCarthy era, because it was the beginning of the end of it. There were union members and Cal students out there in front of the station, or in front of the City Hall, and they said their part too. So KPFA has a long history of being in favor of the people. Thank you.
We're going to be asking Alex Steinberg to speak. He's on Zoom. He's calling. He would be from New York, and there's other people from other stations that are connected via Zoom right now as well. And then afterwards, we're also going to have some more speakers here as well.
Thank you for holding this meeting, and I think it's appropriate to have an informational picket line in front of KPFA, because the people who are the majority of the local board at KPFA and who have been tasked with it. We're getting some feedback from somebody. The people who have been tasked with the job of protecting KPFA and Pacifica as a whole have grossly failed in their duties. They have, in fact, abandoned the most basic concepts of fiduciary responsibility that board members have. You've already heard about the so-called settlement agreement, and that it's a sham. Well, it's actually more, I would use a stronger word than a sham. It's a fraud. The majority of the Pacifica National Board has actually perpetrated an illegal fraud, not only on Pacifica, but on the court itself. They presented something to the court that was a complete lie, namely that there was some kind of a negotiation between two contentious groups that have finally come together, that is Pacifica and New Day. In fact, all that happened is that the board changed hands through, I won't go into why it changed hands. There was some pretty unscrupulous stuff that happened to allow that to happen. And now what the situation we have is that a solid board majority are actually New Day. So when they told the court they were negotiating for a settlement agreement, they were in effect just negotiating with themselves, and in the process they completely ignored and stepped over the rights of all the members of Pacifica who voted on that referendum. And this is an absolute fraud, and there will be consequences. We are appealing the current state of the court case, which at the moment it's been dismissed. We are going back to court. We're appealing that ruling, and I think we have some good reasons to believe that we will prevail. And let me say this to all those concerned protectors who may be listening. You are not going to win this fight. We will continue to come after you. We will continue, and we will eventually succeed, because we have right on our side, and we have the we have the ethos and everything that Pacifica stands for. We stand for that. You stand for nothing but legal bullshit and fraudulent claims and purges against people that don't agree with you. So anyway, those as some of the people said, I have also been purged in a trial that I can only describe as a kangaroo court. And frankly, I feel that the fact that they went after me is kind of a badge of honor as far as I'm concerned. Because that means that they recognize that I was doing something effective against their fraudulent settlement agreement. So anyway, my remarks have to be brief because I'm actually not in New York. I'm in Europe, and it's really, really late for me.
Can I ask you one question, Alex? Something
Sure.
that a lot of protectors have been talking about, and they have been fooling KPFA listeners about this for quite some time, talking about how WBAI was a drain on Pacifica and all that kind of stuff. Could you clarify a little bit regarding that issue? Because that has been a lie that has been going on so long that people actually have believed it.
Well, it's a big lie, and you keep repeating it, and some people believe it. Yeah, this character Fred Dodsworth keeps repeating that WBI owes Pacifica $9 million. He never cites any evidence for this. I mean, it's where does this figure come from? Who knows? Maybe it came out of one of his bodily parts. I don't know, but that's what's going on. And unfortunately, there's a lot of our members simply don't know what's going on. If they didn't know, I think they'd be really outraged at some of these developments.
And could you specify how the FCC complaint that was started out by the protectors here, Sherry Gendelman and Carol Wolfley and Donald Goldmacher, how that has ended up affecting WBAI in terms of its license, broadcast license, and how vulnerable it is? Could you comment on that?
Oh, absolutely. They really put WBAI in jeopardy. And by the way, they to this day now brag about it and claim that this was a good thing they did, and all these destructive actions that they've taken, they claim were really whistleblower actions, that they were exposing some deep, dark secrets that were going on at WBAI. What they've done effectively is they completely destroyed the business model that WBAI had, which consisted of selling premiums. It was not a business model that I particularly was in love with, but that was the business model. And if you wanted to change it, the rational way to do it would be to gradually transition to another business model. But their complaint to the FCC made it impossible to continue with that business model in an instant, and we had no other business model. It really put us into a lot of jeopardy, and frankly, these people don't give a shit. And in fact, they like to brag that they are masters of fundraising and they're professional and all that. And we see that they have been anything but that. Pacifica is in a dire financial situation. It's way late in filing necessary documents to maintain its nonprofit status, and at board meetings, all we get is what I call happy talk. They tell us, oh, everything's wonderful and this and that, and we have not had a proper financial statement in something like 10 months. So without a proper financial statement, it's really impossible for board members to carry out their fiduciary responsibilities. I know what I'm talking about. I was a former chair of the National Finance Committee. I was also a former chair of the Pacifica National Board, as a matter of fact. And unlike Mr. Dodsworth, I took my duty seriously, and when we didn't have profit and loss statements, I insisted that the people responsible for that produce them. Now, one other thing I've noticed is that they have the nerve to accuse some of us who are involved in the appeal on the settlement agreement. They have the nerve to say that we are costing Pacifica legal bills. Well, they are the ones who are responsible for the legal bills, because I warned them before they went into this, quote, settlement agreement, that they are going to cost Pacifica a lot of legal bills, because what they're doing is basically unlawful and fraudulent. And now we see the consequences. Anyway, I want to say Donna Carter is one of the best of the board members presently, and that's the kind of people they go after. They go after the people who are really committed to Pacifica, who have some knowledge and some feeling for the Pacifica mission. They don't.
Thank you, Alex. We really appreciate your participation.
This is taking place in the context of a fascist government that is threatening Kimmel. It's threatening the right of broadcasters to criticize the government. Now, if they threaten Kimmel and they threaten major broadcasters, what does that mean for Pacifica? I think the listeners of Pacifica and KPFA have to think about that. Are we vulnerable to an attack by the Trump government? And absolutely we are. We have programming on Palestine. We have programming on many, many issues that are something that the government doesn't want to hear. So to put Pacifica and KPFA in jeopardy by not producing an audit from 2022 that cost us to lose our nonprofit status is frankly politically negligent and financially negligent. These people in this state of the world and a fascist government are putting us in jeopardy, and we warn not only the KPFA listeners, but the KPFA staff. Many of the staff here have been intimidated and threatened not to speak out. They are afraid. When they talk about bullying, the staff is afraid that if they speak out and talk about things, they will lose their programs. They will lose their shows. Is this democracy? Is this free speech? Absolutely not. And programmers have lost their positions here, including myself. I had a program called Work Week on KPFA. KPFA was removed arbitrarily. The management of KPFA never does evaluations of the programs, yet that's a requirement of the management, the bylaws. They also never have a report to the listeners. Why have the KPFA listeners never heard a report from the KPFA manager where they could call in and ask questions? It doesn't happen at KPFA, even though it's in the bylaws. So they have contempt for the bylaws. They have contempt for democratic process. And next we're going to have Daniel, who is been fighting on with Rescue Pacifica for principles. He's also been threatened to be expelled or purged because of an article he wrote. So welcome, Daniel.
Hello, my name is Daniel Bordstrom. I'm a former board member. I was on the board for 6 years. And let me say a couple words about KPFA. You probably know this, it went on the air back in 1949, stood up to McCarthy and other such. It opposed the Korean War, later opposed the war in Vietnam, and so on. And hopefully it will continue to do that. It's now in danger, serious danger. Let me also say that that back in the 90s, the station was hijacked, and that was overcome back in 1999, and following that, it was set up as a radio democracy. That is, the listeners elect their representatives, elect their people to boards. I was one of these. I was elected, as were other people, Steve here, and Elizabeth, and also Donna Carter, and as I say, it started out as a listener democracy. Now it's being re-hijacked. By re-hijacked, let me give some. I could give some examples here. 3 people have been purged. 3 people that the listeners elected. That includes Steve and Elizabeth and Alex Steinberg, who just spoke from New York. Or actually, I think he spoke from Europe, but he's from the New York station. These trials. Now, remember, these people are, well, all of us who've been on this board have been elected by the listeners. So logically, these trials are going to be held in front of listeners. No such thing. They were held silent. They were in closed session. We're not supposed to even talk about them. Actually, I did. I got a recording of one of them, and wrote an article and publicized it. But this, and as I said, 3 people have been purged. Now tomorrow, this Saturday, there's going to be another trial. As before, it's a closed session. Maybe I'll just wait till that ambulance scoots by. Okay, I guess it's gone.
Not coming for us.
Okay, not for us. Yeah. It's.
There's 3 people that got purged so far.
Yeah, and now one more. Donna Carter is going to be purged tomorrow. It's a closed session, as were the others. So, what kind? Now, there's a few other things, strange things going on too, as these other speakers have said. Pacifica has apparently lost its status as a what do you call it? Nonprofit 501c3, I believe it's called. Apparently lost this. Now, how did that happen? Well, they just forgot to file some papers, I guess, and there's a lot more to it. They didn't get audits done, other things which are necessary for this. Now, how does this happen? Is it incompetence? Or is there something more going on behind this? Let me just say that I do wonder what's going on behind this. I mean, we're not, our station is not particularly popular with the Trump regime or with Biden or any of the others either. So it leaves me to wonder. Now, we just mentioned this thing that happened, this failure to get our nonprofit status updated. It's not the first time this sort of thing has happened. A few years ago, somebody forgot to pay the property taxes. Just forgot on this studio here, and it finally came out when somebody saw that the state or the county tax office sent a notice saying, "Hey, you pay up, or we're going to put your building on auction." Now, again, how does such things happen? And of course, we hear there's excuses. This person's not responsible. The GM is not. GM, that's a general manager at that time, was
7 years of taxes. 7
yeah,
years.
yeah, 7 years of taxes. Only 7 years. The general manager was not responsible. Well, really, they tell us he's not the one who's supposed to be paying those taxes. But whether or not he is, he certainly should have known that. He should have known that something was wrong. It's like a skipper on a ship. Maybe you don't. The skipper on on some sailing vessel, some ship, doesn't attend to each and every little detail, but he better have his eye on what's happening. He better know what's not being done. If there's something wrong with the ship, something that the shipyard needed to fix, he should have seen that and reported it. This didn't happen, and then now I say it's happening again. Well, this time with this nonprofit status. Well, I could go on talking for hours about stuff, but let me pass this back to Steve here.
This obviously is very serious because, as I said earlier, this is taking place in a period where we have a fascist government that is looking for excuses to shut down media that challenges the government. That's the period that we're in right now. And again, I want to urge the KPFA programmers who have not been involved politically. They don't participate in governing whatsoever, except they have some people who are elected who basically are in favor of shutting down WBAI. That's their position. So I want to appeal to them to wake up. Wake up before this station is closed. Wake up. I have to say that, because if these people who are doing programming in the station don't wake up, they're going to someday come to the station and it will be closed, because that's what this government wants to do. This is a serious thing. It's a destruction of independent media. And these programmers at this station around the country have to wake up and start to make sure that the management of this station does what they should be doing, which is actually complete audits and get them to the state of California so we don't lose our nonprofit status. One of the issues is a community advisory board who we have tried to get people on, and Fred Cook, who is a member of IATSE in San Francisco, tried to get that board going. He was rejected. The protectors basically refused to have a democratic process where people wanted to volunteer on the CAB could participate. They closed him out of it, and there's been no CAB report. There's been no report to the board about the community. So why is that? Again, it's a contempt for the membership. It's a contempt for the listeners. So welcome, Fred Cook.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you all for coming out and speaking up. This is a really serious time that we're in. And to give an overview, I see it as our being caught in a squeeze play between the Trump government that wants independent media, especially Pacifica Radio, to go away entirely. And on the other hand, a rule or ruin faction within KPFA who've by various nefarious means taken over control, whose goal is to neutralize the fundamental mission of Pacifica. Lou Hill was a pacifist. He opposed all wars. And what's been sneaking in now is, well, we'll go for this war or that war. And while there are lots of courageous programmers on KPFA and other stations around the network who are speaking out clearly against various specific wars, the overall ethos is to make Pacifica airwaves neutralized, make them safe for the corporate Democratic Party and the policies it wants to pursue. So we're caught in this squeeze play. We need to keep supporting Pacifica Radio as independent, democratically controlled, community-based radio. That's why the apprenticeship program was so important, to bring in people of color, women, poor people, people whose voices are not heard in the commercial media. Unfortunately, as part of this slow-moving coup, that apprenticeship program has been phased out. We need to bring it back. So there's a lot more that I could say. Many of the points have been touched on already. An overview is that we live in a propaganda environment. We live in an environment dominated by surveillance, secrecy, and deception. And, you know, you may have thoughts one way or the other about it, but there are certain things, such as what happened in New York on the 11th of September 2001, what happened in Washington, D.C., that have been suppressed, shows that touched on those things have been summarily canceled. There are concerns about the safety of some of the new mRNA products. Now, I know this is a highly controversial subject, but it's been incredibly politicized. There's been a concerted campaign from before the time the epidemic was announced to suppress people who questioned the business model of giving everybody mRNA. That is supposed to save the pharmaceutical industry, and they don't tolerate dissent. KPFA, unfortunately, has not supported multiple voices about this issue. And there are people across the political spectrum who care about this, who, if KPFA were covering it, would be attracted to participate in real dialogue, not in sham propaganda. So what we need, I believe, is a multi-pronged program. We have to pursue legal action, most immediately, to overturn the illegal quote-unquote settlement. You know, New Day made an agreement with New Day, and an ignorant, inattentive judge rubber stamped it. The appeal that we put in, that Alex Steinberg and others led, that appeal, the judge didn't actually address it. It was dismissed before the decision was made. So there's an immediate case to push that particular issue forward. Ultimately, what needs to happen is a forensic audit of every station and the Pacifica National Board, so we see what really happened with the money. We don't know. And since even before New Day controlled the PNB, they controlled key elements of the system so that the financial reports were not being distributed. Or if they were presented minutes before a board had to review and make a decision. Completely irresponsible way to do things. But typical of how Trump is doing his coup d'etat, it's riding on impunity and waiting for the courts to catch up. The New Day group, the Rule or Ruin contingent, are doing illegal things every time they turn around. And it takes a long time for the legal process to catch up with them. So far, none of them have been prosecuted. They should be. But we need the facts, we need a forensic audit, and we need every local station area, which are very different culturally. We need every local station area to be taken seriously. So there's two levels of legal action. There's the immediate and the long term. Part of the problem here is that most of this has been hidden from the listener members. Programmers who've attempted to address these issues, to even leak the information that there's something going on here that you should be paying attention to, have been bumped off the air. And people know it, and people are scared. So I can understand programmers making immediate decisions to keep their programs on the air. I appreciate the programs that are staying on the air, but it's a problem. How do we educate the listener members? Well, that's an open question. I look forward to hearing from you about it. One of the allegations has been that New Day, instead of having to go through the cumbersome process that we go through of submitting a message to an intermediary third-party company and having it vetted and then sent out at expense to us, that New Day has had those membership lists leaked to it so that they can go directly to the listeners. They also have financially deep pockets, so they can do slick mailings. We can't do that. So we have to understand how the playing field is tilted. The playing field is tilted. You have to know that in order to make sense of what's going on. So the final thing that I have envisioned is rebuilding from the grassroots up. Rebuilding independent radio in every county that is served by the Pacifica signal, and having local podcasters developing their programs, having programs that involve unions and churches and schools, developing grassroots talent, developing grassroots journalism about what are the important issues in each community, county by county by county, and then enabling those people to feed the best of their programming onto the Pacifica service, or if they won't take it, onto an alternative service, so that we begin rebuilding independent radio from the grassroots up. Some of that can happen on the internet, but the internet is subject to surveillance. The other way that it can happen is with low power FM, and Berkeley is the home, the starting place of low power FM. Stephen Dunifer fought the case all the way to the Supreme Court and won and forced the FCC to allow low power FM broadcasting. So that's a resource. The technology is not that expensive. Anyway, so having a grassroots movement of local listener members and supporters who are informed and who have an immediate visceral connection with independent radio because they've got it in their own county, then up from the grassroots, those people can vote, and eventually we will prevail. Eventually democracy will prevail. Thank you.
One of the things that we have to add is that broadcast radio is very important because they don't control who listens to it. They don't know who listens to it. So that's something to protect, and especially with the control of social media and the fact that the techno-fascists like Larry Ellison, his son, is buying TikTok. They're going to use control of this media to push their agenda, their fascist agenda. So saving and protecting KPFA and Pacifica as a broadcast network is very important for the people of this country. And we have to stand with that. And we have to let people know what is going on here, and that's why we're having this press conference here. You're not going to hear this on KPFA. This is not being reported on KPFA, and the journalists here on KPFA are afraid to say anything about this. It's a no-no subject. So when we talk about bullying and the government controlling things, the journalists right here at KPFA are intimidated and afraid to say anything in the air about the fact that they've lost their nonprofit status, Pacifica. Isn't that an issue of concern to the listeners and supporters of Pacifica, that they've lost their nonprofit status? You won't hear it on the air at KPFA by the programmers because they're afraid to talk about what's going on at Pacifica. When you're afraid to talk about what's going on in Pacifica, you're not defending Pacifica. But that's the atmosphere of fear and intimidation that they have, the management has, in this cabal called Save KPFA, called the Restore, the Protectors, and others. So we want to urge you. Also, I want to point out that Pacifica Fightback is a national network which has also been fighting for democratic governance, also more working class programming. This station, KPFA, has no labor program. Imagine that in the Bay Area, which is the center of labor activity, union struggles, teachers struggles, healthcare workers, and we don't even have a labor program on KPFA. Why is that? How could that be? Even New York has 3 programs, not on KPFA. That is why we need a programming council. We need a democratic process where a labor program can be set up. It's not happening at KPFA, and it won't happen under the present management. who want to control the programming and put their friends on and use cronyism. So our last speaker is going to again be Lisa Milos, who is another Chilean American who was kicked off the board, purged from the board, and has been fighting for democracy and was on the audit committee and saw the fact that KPFA was withholding financial reports.
I had another point I wanted to make. As a member of the Community Advisory Board, I wanted to involve more people from the community in programming, in support, and the people who were running things told me that they didn't want to do that. So for the entire time of the pandemic, even though other people were having Zoom meetings, and I offered to pay for the Zoom account to do the Zoom meetings, they declined to do that. They didn't want the Community Advisory Board to meet. So I have one other thing to say, and that is about the affiliates. There are 200 community-based stations who are affiliates of the Pacifica Network, and that's a good thing. They are able to get programming from the Pacifica satellite. That's very good. But one of the problems that we foresee is that the people who want to centralize power, the rule or ruin group within Pacifica, will, I predict, move to take control of the programming of those local stations. And one of the harbingers, one of the things to watch for is at what point they are forced to carry Ian Masters on their station. So those of you who are affiliates, please be aware that this is in the offing. Ursula Rudenberg is part of this long-term plan to establish a new NPR that is loyal to the corporate Democratic Party, but is not loyal to local communities. Thank you. Beware.
Hi, this is Esther Averum. I'm in Washington, D.C. I produce and host On the Ground, Voices of Resistance from the Nation's Capital. And I was just given information about the press conference, and so I was hoping that the organizers could reiterate some of the main issues that we're discussing at this emergency press conference, but I didn't want it to end without adding something. For probably more than a decade, people at WPFW have been trying to hammer out a grievance process so that there could be due process and justice for the unpaid staff whenever there's an issue. And it has not been allowed to really proceed and be put into place. And so the last effort was kind of, I guess I would call, maybe say, sidetracked the document that was drawn up and approved by the local station board for giving the unpaid workers a chance, an opportunity and route to appeal any actions they feel is unjust, was kind of funneled into a process where the ED of Pacifica said she would incorporate all the items hammered out into new contracts that would apply to everybody across the country. In other words, rights and responsibilities for each staffer as well as, I assume, for management. She said she would get back to us in 60 days. The 60 days was up on September 10th. Now, the reason I think this is really important, and I'm glad to see so many people coming out at KPFA to discuss, because you have an unpaid workers association, and in the process of trying to hammer out this document, we realized that the way everything is going down and we still don't have a grievance process, that we all need an unpaid workers association. We all need basically a national union for unpaid workers at Pacifica. And this may dovetail into what you're talking about today, because we need democratic rights for the largest grouping at Pacifica, and that's the unpaid workers, the people who produce and host the shows. Now, I understand some stations, they say, have all their people are paid, whatever, that's probably a lot. We have to start with the grassroots organization of the unpaid workers in Pacifica. So anyway,
Maybe you can repeat that because the battery.
Action item, I would like to know when the next Fightback meeting is, and just make sure I can stay on the list. I don't always get the notices. It seems to be a hit and miss kind of situation. But if you all could also reiterate the main points for today, because I just got a text message and people are talking on various topics, but I wanted to kind of make sure I get the main idea from today and any action items. Thank you.
During part of what you said, we got disconnected because my phone lost its battery, so we were able to recuperate it quickly enough. But
thank you very much.
You're from KPFK, right? Los Angeles.
That is correct. Bella DeSoto, former twice elected to the local station board, and dismissed originally in December 2021 by the same group of people known as New Day from the PMB. As you were recently dismissed, suspended with Steve Seltzer. I wanted to agree with Fred Cook when he said that we must demand of an individual independent forensic accounting forensic review of the financial content at each station network-wide at Pacifica Foundation, Inc. Because I have been speaking about this for a long time. It is very important. I also want to let everybody know that the legal matter that is being pursued is moving along. And right now the fundraising website has raised almost $24,000. $30,000 will be needed in short order for the current attorney to fully go full thrust into this legal push that was, as noted before, was ignored by on July 3rd of this year.
Hey, Bella.
That process is going forward, and yesterday several people met with the attorney.
Bella, I have a question for you. You and I both served on the audit committee in 2022 when we found out that from the actual accounting firm representative who was at the auditing committee meeting that KPFA had delayed the audit by 7 months because they hadn't handed in the information. So that was for the audit of 2021. Now, apparently, according to the paperwork of the AG, it says that the audit for 2022 has not been done. And what do you think about that? What do you, I mean, I'm not asking you to speculate, but what do you think is going on there?
Okay, well, thank you for that, because absolutely, you and I served on this committee, and I had served a couple of years before as well. KPFA has been used as an instrument to impede any network accountability. KPFA has become, as I have called it before, the Grand Central Station for the dealings, the deeds of the so-called New Day group, who have illegally taken over the foundation, and this is what we are countering right now, which will be coming to court very soon. Absolutely, Elizabeth, these people have become obtrusive. They do not hold local finance committee meetings. Even the local station board members were never given reports. The information was kept from them. Everything is done in secret, clandestine format. So absolutely, and this is one reason why. This is the main reason why these audits have not been completed in timely fashion, and therefore affecting the status of the nonprofit status of Pacifica Radio Foundation in the California Registry of Nonprofits, per the California Secretary of State and California Attorney General. So I wanted to talk about something else, and that is that, as I said before, the fundraising link, I can put it here on the chat, but not too many people will be able to see it if you do, so that you can make your donations there. We need to collect around 30,000 in short order, in order to assure that this counter legal process is successful this time around. So I'll come back later. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you all for holding this.
Thank you, Bella. Thank you very much. Adriana.
Well, yeah, I've said.
From Houston.
We are almost.
This is from the Houston station, KPFT.
We are almost at the amount that we need. We need a couple of more donations, and I believe that we are the last resort that we have to try to keep this foundation. Thank you, Bella, and that's it. Please, please, please try to support this legal action. That is the last option that our foundation has. They are taking care of everything. They are taking care of our the option to speak publicly. The recordings of supposedly they record public comment in for example, in our LSP. But when you go and check the official recorded posted there, they erase part of public comment that is illegal, but well, that's the way that they are doing it.
I want to thank you all for joining us. We are going to be having other events, Rescue Pacifica Network and Pacifica Fightback, and we continue to fight to defend Pacifica, KPFA, and put the people back in charge of this important station and this important foundation, Pacifica Foundation. So thank you, brothers and sisters. Solidarity, and we're going to continue this fight. Thank you all.